Welcome to Perspectives in Mobile, the news podcast from the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. Join us discussing the world of telecommunications, technology, and mobile innovations. From Florence, Riccardo Amati.
Welcome to MEF Podcast Perspectives, where we delve into the pressing issues of cybersecurity shaping our digital world today. I'm your host, Riccardo Amati, and we're joined by Udo Schneider, the governance, risk, and compliance lead for Europe at Trend Micro.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining, Udo. Udo brings a wealth of expertise in IoT security, cloud computing, network defense, and all the things that should make secure our connectivity. In this episode, we'll explore the alarming rise of tech scams in particular, a sophisticated form of online fraud targeting job seekers. These scams have evolved into a global industry, exploiting individuals through fake employment opportunities that lead to significant financial and emotional harm. We'll also discuss some innovative initiative at Trend Micro's, the company. A real-time protection tool can become in order to help users identify and avoid such scams. Udo, thank you for being here. Could you start by explaining what task scams are and how they have become a significant threat in today's digital world?
Well, in a simple way, task scams is something that's pretty old. It's basically, trying to, convince users to, apply for jobs, which are basically scams, and to do some simple tasks, they're getting paid for it. At least that's the promise. But basically, the payment never happens. And it's even worse that during those task scams, the scammer actually convinced the user to, if they want to get their reward, if they want to get paid, or if they want to get their promotion, then they have to, pay on their own some money to the scammers, to enable those payouts, or to, achieve a new level with higher commissions and things like that. So basically, it's fraud. It's trying to convince users to send over money and getting rich on that money. And not the users. I mean, the scammers are getting rich.
Right. Your company, Trend Micro, produced a research just on this kind of scam. What are the figures? How is it going? I mean, how many people are taken in this scam, and how many victims did you find, if you have some figures?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, the number of victims is something that's there's a large number of victims which we don't know, so we only know, the official numbers, and basically the numbers are staggering. I mean, we're talking something about, at least the numbers that we know, something about, losses in the multiple thousands of dollars. So there is a figure from I have to double check it, the Better Business Bureau in the US, which claimed that the loss itself was something around $57,000 all in all. There are, cases where single victims claim to have lost over $800,000. And for a single victim, that's quite a loss, quite a lot. Basically, if you take a look at the average numbers, it's more in the area of a few $1,000s that they actually lost to scammers because they were waiting for their payout. So it's not just small money. The overall amount of cases is pretty high. The amount of money in a single case might be extremely high. But at the end of the day, from a scammer perspective, even if they're just succeeding in, in claiming or in getting $1,000 per victim, it's still a win for them.
Absolutely. And maybe this is the main point, because it's not, in this case, cyber criminals are not attacking, big companies, people with a lot of money. They don't ask for big ransoms. It affects normal people, probably people with some difficulties if they are looking for a job. Maybe they are unemployed, maybe they are not happy with the job. People that has emotions and that they are not powerful, probably. And this is why it's particularly touching, even emotionally. From this point of view, the emotional impact on victims seems to be profound. Could you share some insights into these psychological effects? What did you get? I mean, what kind of even personally, from your point of view, even if not technical?
Yeah.
Because this is it's a very important aspect, I think, in this scam.
Yeah, I think you've just made a very interesting point. Interesting and frightening. The first thing is, I mean, if you have a day job that pays enough, you might not be susceptible to those kind of attacks, because I mean, you have your job, you have your income, the problem solved. However, as you just pointed out, let's say if you're searching for a job, if you haven't had a job for, I don't know, a year or 2 or 3, and you're desperate to get some additional money, let's say to basically put food on the table, then you are way more susceptible to those kind of attacks. So you're getting, let's say, a text via mobile phone. We are searching, let's say, for agents who do simple tasks. The payout is great. Yalla, yalla, yalla. Let's talk about the details later. And at first sight, that seems very, very, very promising, because you don't need additional equipment. You don't need, let's say, additional experience. You can get some money and basically some food on the table. And so the actual idea here is to, let's say, get the victim hooked on the promise of getting, let's say, money. And we're not even talking about a lot of money, just basic money, let's say a few $100s maybe. And the promise is enough to hook them in initially. And then I would say that's the psychological part. Then it gets interesting, because then the scammers start to kind of, let's say, act with a, let's say, split personality. So you're talking to your agent or your handler, and you have customer support. And the basic idea here is that the scammer tries to convince you to put in some money into your account to even achieve higher status, to get, let's say, even better commissions. But to actually get the payout, you have to contact their, in quotes, customer support. And then there's always a problem, let's say, with your PayPal account, with your credit card, with your wire information, so that they actually don't execute the actual payout. And I think that's the emotional and psychological, let's say, trap that many are falling into, which from my point of view is perfectly understandable, because you have this idea of, yes, I just made some money. I just made $100 or $200. And to get those $100, I have to pay maybe $10. So our brain is wired in a way to say, well, sure, yeah, I mean, I have those $100. I want to have them, so I can simply, let's say, pay $10, I don't know, transfer fees or whatever, because I already have that money, although it's all virtual. And I think that's the psychological problem, because I mean, it's like with a slot machine. Next time it will work. Now I have that virtual money in there, and so victims start to pay more and more and more, and the figure in their account increases over time. So it's maybe $100, $1,000, $10,000, and the idea is, now to get some money, I have just to pay this one time a little bit extra to actually get the money. And I mean, we've all been in this kind of situation where we think that, let's say, even if we put in some, let's say, money into a bad decision, I think everybody of us agrees that sometimes we even put in more money to justify that bad decision, although it might have been the better choice to not pay anymore. And that's the same here.
How do cybercriminals impersonate legitimate companies and use platforms like SMS, WhatsApp, Telegram to perpetrate these scams? What's the procedure there?
The procedure is frighteningly simple, to be honest. So they're searching for, let's say, traditional companies who are doing, let's say, personal management, who are doing HR, things like that, and simply impersonating their websites. So it's like with a traditional phishing campaign.
They recreate a website.
Correct. But in contrast, let's say, to those let's say, traditional phishing campaigns that we might know, they create or they recreate more of the website. So it's even if you take a look at their, let's say, supposed legitimate website, you can check different pages. You can even, let's say, check their about page. Sometimes they even send you, sometimes faked, sometimes stolen certificates for the actual company. So when it was founded, where it's located, things like that. So it all looks pretty legit. And once again, I think that's one of the things that we have to understand. I mean, if we're not in emotional or financial trouble, we might have the analytical, let's say, scientific approach to check, is that website legit or not? If I don't know how to put food on a table, and if I have a chance to get $100 for, let's say, next week to put food on the table, my scientific analytical approach to check a website might not be as sophisticated as ours. And I think the emotional component is really, really important here.
Sure. In the research, you guys highlighted the use of gamification cryptocurrency in these scams.
Yep.
Can you elaborate how scammers employ these tactics to deceive the victims?
It's basically two things. The first thing is that you normally get tasks in batches. So you don't get single tasks, but you get a whole bunch of tasks. Something like you're getting, 10 tasks or 20 tasks or 100 tasks that have to be, let's say, fulfilled in a specific amount of time. So you have that let's say you have a specific number of tasks and you have a limited time window to achieve that. So this kind of plays with our, let's say, natural tendency to be competitive, basically to achieve our goal in a given amount of time. So that's the first thing. It also has the psychological effect that once you, let's say, started the first 2 or 3 tasks, the same thing applies like with the money. You think, well, I've already done 2 or 3 or 20 tasks. To stop now would be a waste of time because I would lose my progress. So let's just do the additional 40, 50, 100 tasks. So that's the first thing, a specific number of tasks in a specified amount of time, which, as I said, plays with this competitive nature of gamification. The second one is once again based on the money, because once you complete the first set of tasks, you might get a response from your agent or from your handler saying, well, congratulations, you just, let's say, achieved the first completion of 100 tasks. We can offer you a add-on, a goodie, or like in a game, you can, let's say, achieve the next level. And in the next level, the amount paid per complete task is even higher. So it's like within the game, just with the catch that to achieve that higher level, you not only have to complete your task, but you have to invest additional money. And by the way, that's something that modern games do as well. I mean, if you take a look at loot boxes or things where you can buy, let's say, better chances, better playability with real money, it's the same here. So the pattern is quite similar.
Yeah. And in terms of remedies, what products can figure out at the Trend Micro to tackle the scams for, that I want to underscore that it's about a normal people scam. It's not about big shots.
Yeah. I think the answer I'm going to give is something that my marketing will not like, because I will first highlight something that has nothing to do with Trend. I think the most important lesson to learn is don't trust Greek with gifts. This didn't work out in Troy a few thousand years ago. It doesn't work out today. And I'm not trying to blame the Greek in general, but if somebody promises you a gift out of the sudden without any kind of relation, you shouldn't trust it. Nowadays, in many cases, nobody will actually, let's say, give you something for free. And if it sounds too good to be true, something like getting a lot of money for simple tasks, then in most cases, it's not true. So it's the first thing I would say. Apart from all the technical things that you might do, is ask yourself the question, why should somebody, let's say, give you something for free or give you a gift? That's the first thing. Just be careful. I know that it might be hard. As I said, if you don't know how to put food on the table, you might grasp for every straw, but still take a look, think, take a look back, sit back, have a thought. Does it really make sense what's been offered here? So that's the first thing. The second thing is the thing that we're doing right now here is talking about it. So if you hear about it, if you hear that, let's say one of your friends, one of your relatives, let's say has fallen for a make money quick kind of scheme, better to stop now before even investing more money. So take a look in your environment with your friends, with your relatives. Is there something going on there? And the third thing is then we're talking about technical measures. There are products out there, solutions out there, free solutions out there, which help you to detect those scams. So I think you pointed it out in the beginning that the initial contact normally is via text, and then the communication goes on via WhatsApp. And there are tools, even free tools out there that can check your chats and check whether they are coming from, let's say, known scammer telephone numbers, if the content is, let's say, kind of fishy or things like that. One of those products is a tool from Trend Micro called Scam Check, and I think the name says it all. It basically checks your chats, it checks the phone numbers from those chats for indicators whether this is legit or whether this is a scam. But still, once again, I think my marketing won't like me. I think the most important thing to notice here is that if somebody promises you something for free, and if a gift is too good to be true, in most cases, it's not. It's a scam.
But anyway, how does Scam Check, you said,
Mm-hmm.
how does it work? I mean, does it make an investigation on the fake website and all that? What does it do?
On first sight, it's way simpler. For instance, if we're talking about texts or WhatsApp, it simply checks, is this a known scammer? Is this a known phisher phone number, for instance? Is this WhatsApp account, is the associated phone number, is this known to be scam? Because the interesting thing is that especially the first contact, so the initial contact most cases takes place over text. Those are known bad phone numbers. And with we, I mean all the different security vendors and things like that. We know those scammers since years, basically. So just let's say catching this initial contact based on the phone number is in many cases enough to catch, let's say, most of the initial scams just by knowing the phone number. So the Scam Check, for instance, what it does is it actually checks, is this phone number a, let's say, known bad phone number? And if it does, just highlight it. Another thing that Scam Check, for instance, does is it can check the content of the actual communication. So it doesn't go as far as checking whether the website is legit. That's something different. But it checks the conversation. Are there, let's say, indicators within that conversation that are typical for scammers? So something like, let's say, specific words, specific phrases. You can make money fast, easy jobs, easy tasks. Please apply here, things like that. Because again, the scammers are not aiming for large companies. They're aiming, let's say, for consumers, for lots of consumers. So they're reusing that template all over the place again. And once those template is known, you can basically detect that template. So that's the second thing that Scam Check does. Another thing, for instance, and that's just, let's say, to give you the complete picture, is it can, for instance, also check for deep fakes. So if you have, let's say, something within the chat that appears to be generated or altered by Gen AI, it can detect that and tell you, well, this image, for instance, let's say a certificate of the actual, let's say, location of the company or things like that. This looks like altered or generated by Gen AI. Just be careful. So it works. Let's say the actual principle is quite simple.
By the way, with the rise of AI and deep fake technologies, you were saying scammers are adapting to methods. Is the challenge becoming stronger and stronger? And from the opposite side, does AI give means to cyber defenders to have tools more effective?
The short answer to both is yes. The longer answer is, if you are coming, let's say, from a cyber criminal side of point of view, then Gen AI, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking about, let's say, Gen AI for text or for videos or for image, basically allows attackers to generate any kind of content and still any kind of convincing content pretty easily. So it doesn't matter whether it's, let's say, for instance, text for those task scams, or whether it's text for phishing mails, whether it's complete websites, for instance, the text. Same for images and same for video. The consequence right now is, to be honest, pretty devastating, because the consequence is that you basically can't trust anything anymore that you see on some kind of electronic devices. Doesn't matter whether it's audio or video or an image or text. Everything can be faked quite easily, and it's very, very hard, and let's say for a regular consumer, next to impossible nowadays to really detect a good Gen AI or a good deepfake content. There are some ways that you could do it if you have, let's say, enough time and the scientific background and analytical tools, but let's say for a regular consumer, it's next to impossible to detect a good deepfake or a Gen AI content. So the consequence, as I said, is pretty devastating, because it basically means that you can't trust anything transmitted electronically. So that's the first thing. So for an attacker, it's kind of content haven. You can do anything quite easily, and it's still convincing for the user, because let's take one step back. The whole idea behind LLMs or large language models and, let's say, Gen AI and deepfakes, the whole training process is optimized in a way that as humans, we don't see a difference between the real thing and the fake thing. That's how those systems are being trained. So it should come as to no surprise that for a regular consumer, it's quite hard, and from my point of view, even impossible nowadays to really distinguish, is that real or is it fake? On top of that, if you have the time to take a look at content, if you have the time to take a look at an image, let's say maybe do some pixel peeping in Photoshop and see something that looks fishy, yes, then sometimes you might be able to detect a deepfake or, let's say, Gen AI generated content. But let's not forget, in many cases, we are talking about an emotional component as well. So again, if you have, let's say, if you're in a distressed situation, if you are worried about, as I said, putting food on the table next week, then you don't take the time to do pixel peeping in PowerPoint and take a look at, does this text sound AI generated?
You don't want to. You hope that is true.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. What we're seeing right now goes against, 100, 200,000 years of evolution. I mean, we as humans, we are conditioned in a way, especially the thing that we're doing right now, doing a, let's say, real-time video call. We are conditioned in a way that if I can look my partner in the eyes, whether it's electronically or, let's say, face-to-face, we kind of attach some trust to it. Because, I mean, I see your reactions, I see your eyes, I see your smile, and we are socially and evolutionarily conditioned in a way that we associate some kind of trust with that. And that's totally blown out of the water nowadays with deep fakes. Because with a deep fake, especially if you're talking about video, you can do it in real time. And we still have that, let's say, evolutional and social conditioning for the last, 200 years, to associate some kind of implicit trust to our, let's say, opponent or to our partner, because we can see his or her reactions in real time. And that's something that nowadays with Gen AI, basically everything that you see that's being transmitted electronically, you can't really trust it anymore. So that's the big win for the attackers.
And from the other side, I mean, AI can help cybersecurity. How?
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
And I think that's the good message. AI itself is like every other technology, can be used for bad, can be used for good things. And we as defenders, we leverage AI as well. So for instance, let's say if we talk about detecting those, let's say those scams, for instance, one of the things that you can do is you can train AIs to detect whether text has been generated by an AI. And it can tell you, well, this is something that has been generated automatically, and content-wise, semantic-wise, it matches the stuff that we've seen in other scam campaigns. So instead of relying on, let's say, hard patterns or hard templates, which can be easily circumvented by just exchanging a few words, security solutions can rely on AI to get the semantic meaning of a message, a scam, and decide, well, is this the same? Not word for word, but is it content-wise? Is it similar? And if it is, and if we know that this is, let's say, a bad scam message or a scam message in general, let's also just flag the new message, which is semantically similar as scam. So that's, for instance, something that we're doing, let's say, on our defender side. Another thing is, I think everybody of us nowadays has maybe used ChatGPT or DeepSeek to, let's say, get a summary of a long text. I mean, drop in a PDF and ask ChatGPT, please provide me a quick summary. That's also something that we can, for instance, do on our side. If we're going, let's say, on the business side, if you are, let's say, an analyst whose task is to check, 20,000 possible incidents a day, instead of doing those checks manually, we can use AI to provide summaries, to provide optimized and already collected data to that analyst. Very simple.
Finally, I mean, looking ahead, what trends do you foresee in the cybersecurity landscape? I mean, it's a big question, I know. But for example, quantum computing is evolving rapidly, apparently. I mean, it's not just... it has always been something, unclear, just up there somewhere, but without it. I mean, now some companies are at least saying there are results, and that could make cybersecurity more complex, isn't it? Because the means that the criminals are going to have are probably going to improve. So what's the cybersecurity scenario from a Trend Micro point of view?
Yeah. I would answer first of all I would answer without answering. The first thing is...
That's not good. You need to...
No, that's me. No, I think the important point to understand here is, let's say, from a cybercriminal perspective, one has to differentiate between what's technically possible and what's actually being used by cybercriminals. And there are way more things technically possible nowadays that simply don't make sense for a cybercriminal because it's either not efficient or too expensive. So just because something is possible technically doesn't mean that each and every cybercriminal will go for it immediately. One example, for instance, are deepfakes. I mean, we were just talking about, let's say, real-time video deepfakes, real-time voice cloning, things like that. That's possible today. I mean, doing a real-time video call with a totally fake personality, easy. You can do it in real time. Still, we haven't seen that on a large scale. We have seen it, let's say, with, for instance, North Korean workers applying for jobs in the US, so job interviews, things like that, but we haven't seen it on a large scale. Because for the typical cyber criminal, it's all about scale. And doing things like deepfakes in real time and voice cloning in real time just isn't worth the effort, because the simple things like dropping a simple, even badly written phishing email still works. So I think that's one of the things that one has to differentiate, not because it doesn't mean just because it's technically possible, cybercriminals will do it large scale.
Absolutely.
Still, there are a few things, let's say, on the horizon, which do kind of scare us, to be honest. The first one is, let's say, an improvement in current AI technologies, because as of today, we still have the chance, let's say, to detect most of those things, and we still have the advantage that cyber criminals are not using AI and deepfakes as much as they could, because it's not yet efficient enough for their business model. So my biggest fear personally is that somebody comes around the corner on a cyber criminal point of view and creates a business model, or comes up with a business model that helps them to justify the expenses for large-scale AI use. Because then, out of the sudden, most of the indicators that you might have as a consumer to detect a scam or to detect fake content are basically gone. So that's one of my, let's say, my nightmares. Cyber criminals coming up with a, let's say, business model that justifies the large-scale use of AI or deepfakes. That's the first thing. The second thing is one thing that you just mentioned. It's quantum computing. Quantum computing has been, let's say, the boogeyman of encryption for the last, let's say, 30, 35 years. Because, let's say, one of the basic assumptions that underlies most of our today's communication, let's say, encryption technology, is the fact that it's pretty hard to factorize two prime numbers. So if you have two prime numbers and you multiply them, that's an easy operation. The other way around, if you have a huge number that consists of two prime factors, getting those two prime factors is quite hard. If you, let's say, go down into the mathematics rabbit hole, it's a so-called P equals NP problem. The challenge here is that this is an assumption, first of all. So we assume mathematically that it's hard to factorize two large numbers, or factorize a large number into its prime factors. And the quantum, let's say, computing boogeyman comes from the fact that if you have a quantum computer with a large enough number of qubits, so not binary bits like with a traditional computer, but a qubit, so a quantum bit. If you have a quantum computer which is, let's say, with a large enough number of qubits, then basically this quantum computer can check every number simultaneously. So instead of, let's say, doing a traditional approach of brute forcing every single number and checking every single number one after the other, a quantum computer, in theory, could do all operations at once. So that's
in no time.
Not in no time, but in constant time. Still, this is something where one has to be very careful what is theoretically possible. And in theory, if you take a look at the current quantum or qubit quantum computer theory, let's say, for instance, breaking RSA keys, so public-private keys, in constant time, theoretically possible. The thing is, right now, there are huge leaps in what quantum computers do. Still, the number of qubits that have been put into productive use nowadays is still quite limited. So we're not talking about hundreds or thousands of qubits, we're talking about 10, 20, 30 qubits, which is not enough to tackle that encryption problem. Still, there is a lot of, let's say, research going on. There is a lot of money being put into quantum computing. And so from this point of view, it's a good idea to, let's say, go for post-quantum, let's say, encryption algorithms. So if you rely on your data being secure for the next 50 years, relying on the fact that quantum computing might not be developing as fast as you fear might be a bad idea. So if you have that kind of data, do the, let's say, re-encryption or re-signing now. Still, and I think that's that's one of the things that one has to be aware of. Yes, quantum computing is progressing quite rapidly, but there is a big difference between what's theoretically possible and what's possible, let's say, on a technical scale. And whether I'm running a quantum computer, let's say, with 12 or 15 qubits in a lab, costing millions of dollars, and let's say scaling this to a quantum computer on every desk with thousands of qubits, that's still a huge technical challenge, not theoretical. It's a technical challenge. It's similar to going, let's say, from a simple 8-bit CPU from, let's say, C64 or VIC-20, so early 80s, to a modern, let's say, ARM processor with millions of transistors. In theory, both are CPUs, both do the same job, and I think everybody would agree that an old 6502 or an old Z80 is way less powerful than a modern ARM or Intel CPU.
So, I mean, a challenge for encryption, of course, but it will take time before ready. That concludes our conversation. Thank you, Udo, for your insights. Thank you very much. We have gained really good insights in the online scams. And remember, beyond the innovative solutions being developed by Trend Micro and other companies to combat them, remember what Udo said. Stay informed and vigilant and don't get emotional. That's key to protecting yourself in the digital world. Thank you, Udo.
Thanks for having me.
And for more information, please stay tuned on MEF Radio. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay informed, and good luck with your work.
And thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Perspectives in Mobile. Join us next as we explore telecoms, technology, and mobile innovations. Stay tuned, stay connected, and let's unlock the mobile potential together.